Thank you everyone for coming. Sorry we had a little problem with our projector today, but it's not. The good news is it won't affect our friends on the internet. So the way this came about is I was flying with Richard in a contest. I think this was June contest, and I was timing for him, and we're flying together. And people were coming down right and left during the contest, and I noticed Richard was able to keep his plane up a little bit longer than most, and he ended up winning that contest. And it just occurred to me that, anyone in the club knows there's a lot of experts about thermal flying, and you never know who's, you almost don't want to share your knowledge because you're afraid that you're talking to somebody who knows much more than you do. But it just occurred to me that Richard knows a lot, and and I learned a lot from him on that day. So when he mentioned that he actually wrote a white paper, a little short white paper on thermal flying, I leapt at the chance of converting his little graphics from his white paper to the slideshow. And so that's what we're going to be talking today, and it's going to be pretty interactive. Like I said, Richard almost didn't do this because he wanted to not present himself as the expert, but I think it's always a good form. It's sort of like Stephen's talk with beginning gliding. I think we all kind of learn something from watching him walk through the thinking, and we could add to it or learn from it. So I think without further ado, I'll turn it over to Richard, and we aren't going to show you the slides, or actually, I guess I could in some ways.
You can rotate it and let people see it.
Yeah.
I could probably do an illustration.
Yeah.
And we could talk.
So I think I'll keep the slides on the machine and have it point towards Richard. So let's get started, Richard.
Okay, well, so I started putting these notes together for myself to kind of say, because I was trying to find books on, I've tried to find a lot of books anywhere on thermal flying that really explains for RC gliders, what do you do to find a thermal? And it's kind of one of those areas, it's kind of people just don't express it. It's hard to express something that you can't really see. It's invisible. But the way our gliders fly and how we fly them to find lift is a technique that everybody kind of has in their own mind when they're flying. And if you go to ask any pilot, how I just do it. You don't really get, even it's hard to describe how to find a thermal. How do you find thermals? What do you do? And I'm not sure. I have my days when I can't find thermals very good, and then I have my days where I can't land. It's up there forever. So, so that's where I started. I started writing this thing, and I started putting down these notes for myself, and I ended up kind of putting together a little article, and then I put some illustrations in there, real basic stuff. So I wanted to have something that could be for myself, but then it seems to be more like for beginners, like anybody. So let me look at my notes here.
The first slide I have.
Yeah. So
maybe speak to this
so
one.
I made an illustration. I'm going to try to just draw it on the whiteboard here. If I can do my art. Oh, it's not very good pen, is it? So I'm just saying this is the warm rising air. And what a lot of people don't understand, what I didn't understand when I was younger, learning how to fly a glider, is how do these guys know that that's where the thermal is over there? Why did they all of a sudden turn and go over there? Now they're going up. How do they know that? And so one of the things that some people don't understand is that the thermal will push the glider away from it, the rising air. That's my thoughts when I'm flying, when I find lift, is that it will push it away. It's not going to try to draw it towards it. It's always going to kind of knock it off. And so, and if I draw a plane here, I'm going to draw a plane. That's the tail. It will always try to bank it away from the rising air. And so, getting that feeling when you're flying, you want to turn into that and find where the strongest part of that rising air is. And so the first point I have in here on my notes would be when flying near a thermal, the glider will bank away from the rising air. This is visible when a wing lifts up. Turn into the rising air to find the thermal. That's pretty much what everybody does when they're trying to find lift.
So I want to open up a quick.
So that first sentence there that I wrote is kind of basic, but it's kind of the point. I don't know if anybody has any feedback on that.
Well,
No?
I want to ask a question.
Nobody talks about it.
No, I want to ask a quick question because I read someplace, and just pretend you're not listening for a second. Because Richard's saying if the wing lifts up, you fight it and you go into the thermal. And that's what we all think about. But this one article said, oh, if the wing lifts off, make kind of a U-turn and then go into the thermal. And it's a more natural flow. You're still trying to make it a left turn into the thermal, but when the wing banks up, your plane wants to turn right. So you just follow it and make a U-turn kind of. Does anyone have a thought about that, or are you wasting too much time fooling around?
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, so he says don't do that. So I think
either one works. If from flying full size, deal with bigger thermals up higher, but the lowest thermal I ever got full size was about 500 feet. And you're working real hard to do it, and you do both of these techniques.
you just do whatever works at
Yeah,
that
it's
time.
like you can't do it anywhere away from the airport because you're fighting, and if you lose it for 15 seconds, you're in a pattern delay.
Okay, well,
But with the model, it's the same thing. If the wing goes up, if it feels good, you can go with it and come back around, but right where you entered.
yeah,
where the
don't
wing
lose.
rests, you can enter, and you can hope you're entering perpendicular to the rising air then. If you turn right then, you might be flying around the rim of it.
Which might be
So
good too.
at lower altitudes, it's kind of trickier because when you find that bump and then you go, okay, the wing lifted up or the plane's turning to the left. You have to trim your glider. For number one, you have to have the glider trimmed very well so that it flies nice and steady so you can get feedback on what it's going to do. Not hitting the rudder left and right and banking it, because then you don't know what the level flight was. So you don't, because you're visually watching the glider from the ground. So my thoughts on that is if you get that feedback when a wing lifts up and it turns away, it's always better to turn into it, I've always found, because when you turn away from it, you make that circle around. Now you got to find where it was. Now you're trying to look for it. Then you go back to that same spot in the sky where you think it was, and it's not there.
Yeah, which happens all the time.
And then you got to go, okay, maybe it went downwind, so you're chasing after it. But yeah, there's different. But like you say, you can do that tournament. Well, it's stronger over there, and then you just, So there's other ways that you find thermal lift, and it takes a lot of practice, I think.
Okay.
Doing that. But my big point of that first one is that the wings will bank away from the rising air, and you have to turn into that. But depending on the attitude of where you are in the lift, there's a second illustration that I have that you might that I put in here, and it's not very good, but let's see.
Yeah, like my rendition.
So if you're flying straight into lift, a key indicator is that you're in lift is that the tail will kick up a little bit and the glider will fly faster. All my gliders are always set up, they always do that. I think a lot of people you don't always see it, but the glider will fly faster and it will fly better. And you usually have to trim a little bit of up elevator to compensate for the tail kicking up for level flight and for getting the most efficiency out of the thermal. So what do you have written under those? Okay, there you go.
There's an immediate question though that comes up.
I want feedback, thank you.
And that is, you're presupposing that you just ran near a bump and your wing tipped. What did you do to get there? How did you find yourself in the vicinity of the thermal?
Oh, we get into that. We have a search pattern and
All right.
things like that.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
That's great questions, yeah. I started out.
So this talks about a smooth circle. You try to kind of circle on the right parts. You can do a figure 8 or an oval.
So obviously, when you find where the air is going up, you want to stay in that spot, so you're going to have to circle in the lift. There's a lot of debate on. Usually, the best way is a smooth circle in one direction. But if you're in good lift, you can do a figure 8. You can do a left and a right turn, and stretch out and see where it's stronger. So you can make an oval circle. A lot of guys, I'll do that. I'll make a nice oval type circle, not a round circle, to go and get a better range. Where the lift is, a lot of times if I go further to the right in a turn, I'll go, oh, going up higher there, and then I'll turn tighter down over in that area. So another thing too on that is that when you find a lift, you're constantly trying to stay in it. It's not just circle and just kind of think, oh, it's right there, I'll just circle there. You're constantly checking the feedback, say, oh, it's a little lower on that part of the turn. I'll go over on the other side, and they're stronger over there. So, okay. I'm not sure here. This is not the best. Okay. I'm looking at my notes here to try to come up with what I'm supposed to talk about here. Oh, okay, surge patterns.
I try to capture the main points.
So I'm going on the surge patterns. Everybody has a flight plan. Usually when they take off, they want to say, oh, okay, I'm going to fly over this part of the field, because you only have so much time to try to find a thermal or find lift before you're getting low and you're going to be landing. Maybe somebody here might have some feedback on that, but I try to plan where I'm going to go before I launch. And it's not always the best plan. I'll go do man, that was the wrong idea, Some of these guys just are very intuitive on where they can fly to find the thermals and where the lift is at the field, and they kind of know these are good spots and bad spots.
There are also indicators.
There's a lot of indicators.
Look for bugs.
Bugs.
Birds.
Birds are a great.
Look for soaring birds.
Dust in the air or something.
Look for other gliders.
Don't ever trust a gull. Don't ever trust a gull.
Don't trust seagulls.
You're right.
And even hawks and turkey vultures are get such good soars, they can kind of fool you. But sparrows eating bugs, that seems like a good one, because the bugs are rising up and the sparrows are feeding on the bugs.
Yeah, if there are crows thermaling, you can bet the thermal's pretty strong.
Oh.
I've seen that.
Yeah, so crows are good.
Crows
to follow.
don't have that good an LRD.
Yeah.
So
one thing I would reinforce what you said about speed. From the full-size community, anytime we got into the thermal, you drop the nose just a little bit to keep your airspeed up, because that wind is going around relative speed. But to keep your airspeed up, because you want to stay on the right portion of the L or D clear and plane. If you slow down too much, you're going to be dropping out of it. So you're right. Keep your speed up.
the trimming the glider and knowing when in lift and when you're in the thermal, you want to trim the glider for predictable flying. You don't want to be fighting the elevator and the rudder and all this. You want to have it flying smooth. So, because it's so hard to see when you get really high up there, you need to have a trim for the best glide ratio in the thermal.
So can you guys hear the question, the responses from the audience? Is that working okay?
Yeah, no, this is great. I do have one question to add, if it's possible.
Sure.
Yeah. So the fourth bullet here says never search air already searched, and I agree with that. But at some point when you're flying, depending on your altitude and depending on the day, it could be that there's actually really strong turnover, if you will, in the air. There are times of the morning where it's kind of between thermals. It takes a long time for the thermals to cycle through, and so I do agree that if you searched a part of the sky, you know that that's not going to be good for the next 5-10 minutes. But if the air is really active, then that time decreases, and you should remember to go back to places that you thought were bad, because now all of a sudden they're good. I see a lot of people missing that as the day gets better.
Oh yeah, the conditions are constantly changing, and
Right.
that's a good point.
Going to change, the thermals dissipate or do they move?
Yes.
Yes.
To both.
I think
That was a question, if thermals dissipate or they move, and I would say they definitely move. They're not staying still. The wind's blowing. Even on calm days, the wind's moving around a little bit. But yeah, they can break up. But usually, if you're higher, they get stronger. You know, if you're in a
high
good
is
one,
good, yeah.
the higher you get into thermal, the stronger it gets usually. That's what I always found.
We fly at Kennedy a lot, you know, with DLGs and with high-end starts, and they don't start off at the altitude that they do with the winch launch. So how does that, I've heard one person describe the way thermals form as like fingers going to a hand. They start off as kind of separate little things towards the ground that then consolidate as you get higher. So I think is that your experience?
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely, yeah.
The little thermals coalesce into a bigger.
That's all you can think, because it's hard to describe. Yet near the ground, you always have the really small thermals, and if you're lucky, if I've gotten in these little thermals and been able to get higher up and to get altitude in a moderate tight circles, and gotten it specced out, you know, from almost about to land, you know.
But most of the time, you're screwed.
But I think most people will agree that a lot of little thermals will merge and make the bigger thermal. I don't know exactly how that works, but you know that.
I know that, you know, I think maybe if you were launching to a higher altitude, using a surge pattern and looking for stability in thermals makes more sense. But like when we're launching at very low altitude, it seems much more random, you know, and one spot that was good 30 seconds ago, you know, isn't anymore.
Yeah, but ultimately, the higher you get, the more it gets more forgiving. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, if you're lucky enough, you know,
Yeah.
see Noel, you know, he catches a good thermal and then he's way up there, or Kevin, and you know, me once in a while, you know, it's very exciting when it happens, but it's just harder to find.
that's why we're in this lecture.
That's why we're talking about it.
We want to learn.
We're a soaring club, so we thought that maybe this would be a good topic. So I didn't quite finish the search pattern. I think
you jumped like 2 slides ahead.
I did jump. Okay. What should I skip?
So, well, we were talking about this planning your search, and I think you might say sinks, comment about sinks too on this plan.
When, I guess, trying to just, where are you there? Oh, I have to look at my notes here. Okay.
I copied your notes.
It's hard to describe how a thermal looks when you can't see it really. But it's common sense or common knowledge or something like that, that the warmer air that's rising has to displace the cooler air that's surrounding it. And that's why when you're at a field and you feel it's like really warm for a while and all of a sudden the wind's coming, that cooler air was displaced by the warmer air, and that's where the wind got generated by the thermals or the heat. It's indicators that a lot of people can read those really good somehow, and know that, oh, that was a thermal that just went by, and they'll go and they'll fly their plane and find it. Maybe I've done that by accident.
Well, the wind eyes is one thing too. If a thermal's ahead of you in the wind.
My point was this is very good for DLGs, I guess, because you're finding the ground, and the only indicators you have for your DLGs is by just kind of knowing the air patterns for disc launching your little glider, so you can find it, throw it into a thermal, and get long flight right off the bat. You know?
You gotta know your topography.
You got to know
What's gonna break loose that thermal from the ground? We haven't covered it. You gonna do that?
I don't have topography in here, sorry.
Well, that's.
You're right, you know, like where the thermal generators.
Thermal generators, that's basically.
Yeah, like a golden field, dry field or
They
something.
got a new black parking lot now over at Brigantine, maybe that generator.
Right.
You know?
Along those same lines, we have at Brigantino, on the left side as you're looking north, you have the hills, and there are places where the hills form small valleys. Sun's beating down on those valleys, those can be thermal generators.
Yeah, which is part of the reason why blacktop isn't always as good as you might think, because there's no protection for the thermal. It almost needs a little quiet area to kind of percolate a little while, and then it's almost like a bubble lets
A little
loose.
wind comes by and blows it, breaks it loose.
Yeah.
Don't thermal over it.
Don't thermal over
Or wet grass. Okay, so now we can go on to the search.
Okay, so this is something that I learned from reading other people's things, and plus my own experience is doing a little bit of a search pattern where you want to fly the plane perpendicular to you so that you can see the tail boom of the plane, how it's reacting. So you can see the attitude of the glider. So if the glider's flying nice and level, and then the tail starts to kick down, now and it's coming down like that, you know you're flying in sync. Or if you can see the tail, it starts to go up. So if you're flying towards you, it's very difficult to tell the attitude of the glider if you're in left or in sync, or if you're flying away from you, it's very difficult. But if you're flying, I want to say perpendicular across your horizon of your view, which is basically 360-degree view, depending on where you're standing, you can kind of go like all around your perimeter of where your view is. So being able to see the attitude of the glider is a really good way to indicate if you're left or not. Does anybody have any feedback on that?
But I think the other thing is you're kind of going back and forth, maybe upwind of you, right? So that if you do find wind, you can then drift downwind.
A lot of people, you don't want to go, like I say, I don't think I'm ever the expert at this, but you don't want to fly in this, go down. A lot of times flying down is not a good idea because you're flying back over the same air that you didn't find the thermal or lift in previously, because that's the same, it's just air, you're going back to the same air because the wind is blowing that way.
Yeah.
So
Unless you
want-
know there was lift right over you, and now you're launching 2 minutes later, you know that the wind's blowing, you know that you've got to go behind you to get that same lift.
So yeah, the exception of the rule is if you know there's thermal, follow the thermal as far down as you can take, you can risk.
Yeah. So my point was that a search pattern. I'll try to draw something. There it is. Like I say.
It's like the days before projectors. We used to have whiteboards. And
So when the glider's launch, right? You're towed up. I'll draw a picture of the glider. That's supposed to be a fuselage. You want to fly a pattern, I would say, perpendicular to you, so you can see it. And the wind is going that way, right? I didn't do a very good job on this whiteboard, but you want it. If you're flying like that, you're always going to get new air. A lot of times that's what I'll do. And I usually have better results if I do that kind of pattern of trying to find a thermal than if you don't want to go back and fly in the same air that didn't have any lift. And if you go flying downwind like that, a lot of times it'll be not a good thing. So
it's kind of a zigzag upwind, or at least steady.
It's windy, a lot of guys will do that.
Yeah.
There's different things. Because that way you're always getting new air. And if something blows through, you're going to catch it. And
then what you want to address this? Once you catch it, what do you do then? You start to drift.
So Yeah, if you're doing a search pattern and you find a lift, you're going to circle in it and drift with it downwind as long as you can, and try to find the core of it, and then you find it where it's really good, and then get way high downwind. So
Okay.
yeah, we didn't have so I went on the slides.
What I like to do when I'm doing that is if you fly, you try to fly a very constant circle, which means not a lot of stirring the oatmeal with the stick. Just you can try to fly a very constant circle so you can see if it's lifting more on one side or the other, and you try to correct to center it so the lift is constant all the way around.
Right.
That's constant.
So that's a good point about when you fly in the circle. The glider sees a perfect circle like that. That's what you're doing. But that's not where the plane is to the ground. When you're flying a perfect circle, what happens is
It's a corkscrew.
you end up going like this, drifting with the wind, and you have these circles that are kind of like, they end up kind of like that. And a good indicator for seeing how this happens with the drift is watching birds, because they're perfect. They know exactly, plus our experience with flying our gliders, but you end up drifting. Even though your plane is you're making a perfect circle, it's not doing that. It's going downwind like that. So if you're drifting with the lift.
So
The mathematical term is a cycloid. It's like a cycloid.
Cycloid, okay. But if you're in a full sail glider, what you see inside the glider is, oh, I just made a perfect circle. You're not stationary. You're constantly drifting downwind. So
always move with the wind?
yes and no.
Or yes, but there's not always wind.
So there's some strong thermals where it's windy, and this thermal is really strong, and it's not drifting. It's kind of stationary because all that heat is kind of blocking the wind or something, and it's kind of, you're in this one area that's going up, and you're not drifting. You're just going up like crazy in this one area. So the answer is no. Thermals don't always drift downwind. You got to constantly find where that strong point of that lift is, and if you go too far downwind and you start going down, oh, it's back, it didn't drift,
There's not always wind too, because you get shear at different altitudes. Yeah. And it may be blowing here, but on a few higher, that's fine.
Yeah, it might be going the other direction. I've seen cases where on the ground, the wind's going this way, not too heavily, but this way. And you get up a little ways and then you start following the thermal line, you're going in the opposite direction.
which is a good rule.
Counterintuitive, but sometimes.
A good rule of thumb too is if you're in a thermal, don't go looking for something else. I almost lose
that brung you.
Yeah. I almost always lose my thermals by
So
saying,
you get
well, it's not that good.
scared. Yeah. And you don't feel like you bought a gallon that day.
I mean, go and drift all the way down.
We're all the same people.
But yeah, I would say the thermals generally will drift with the wind, but there's situations where the conditions change and the wind directions at different altitudes will be different too. So you can't always say, okay, the wind is going that direction, but up there it could be a little different. So
I've observed another strange phenomenon at almost every field that we've flown at, and I find lift in the sun area more often than not. And the thing that drives me crazy about that is that in the sun is relative to where you're standing. So it doesn't make sense to me. In other words, if the sun's over there, and okay, well, there's usually lift over there. Well, wait a minute, what if I was standing over there? Then over the sun is in a completely different piece of the sky. So it must be psychological.
Yeah.
It's in the worst place.
It doesn't always feel like, you can go towards the sun and find,
I know.
it's wrong.
but
Murphy's Law.
how much can you tolerate, squinting and trying to say, okay, I can do this without seeing my glider. I close my eyes for a little bit, make a nice turn.
I always feel like that's when the bugs attack you the most. When the sun is on your face.
Okay. So
Okay, we're going to Teeterville now.
Okay, well, I wanted to explain part of that.
You're missing some great slides, guys. I would turn it around, but I'm afraid it would affect the audio.
So I'm gonna try to duplicate my illustration with a pen that might work. So,
I can show you.
those are good color.
It says, "Welcome to Teeterville." So it's balanced. This plane is balanced on the center of gravity.
So I'm gonna try to do a little illustration.
Richard, with a whiteboard and a pen like that, if you hold the pen so the tip is lower than the rest of the tip is somewhat.
Trying to draw it too fast here. Got it. This is the wing. This is supposed to be the wing right here. Okay, the fuselage. Oh, is there? So that's the wing. That's the tail. So I drew this illustration here like this. That's the center of gravity of the wing. So in rising air, because the air is lifting up, it causes the tail to rise. And what will happen is the glider will speed up. Some gliders are affected differently in how they fly, but generally, all gliders do this a little bit. And I think the flat bottom gliders with the flat bottom wings are slower gliders, like the Aquila type glider, or they'll do it very extreme. So just really, the tail really will kick up on them. And it's a good indicator that you're in lift.
But it kind of makes sense because it's like a wind vane, isn't it? There's something.
So the reason that happens is because if you put the CG kind of aft, or not so much in the front of the leading edge, but towards the back, it makes the glider twitchier, and it also makes it harder to control. But it also makes it so you can get better indicators sometimes, depending on every glider's a little different and how people fly and they set it up and trim it. So that's why the tail will lift, have that tendency to lift. And some gliders it's very visible. You can physically very well see, wow, the tail just really is lifted up. You can tell that you're in lift in a thermal.
So when it lifts, that means you're going down and speeding up.
That means you're speeding up. So what is causing the gliders to dive?
Yeah.
Slightly, just very slightly, and it makes the glider fly faster. So what I do, and I think a lot of people inadvertently do, is I'll try to go up elevator to compensate for this, and I'll slow the glider down. And the reason why, so now you're getting more efficient. Now you're going up higher. You
Take advantage. Yeah.
instead of it's kind of hard to explain it that way. So
I think it sounds, when you told me that to me, it made sense because so all of a sudden you're looking at your plane, you're going, wow, it's going fast now. And you don't always take advantage of it, but that means it's probably in lift and you should take,
a good indicator that you're in lift is if the glider's flying better and smoother and it's turning really good, you're probably in lift. So I guess we'll go to the opposite of that, if that's the next thing. I don't remember what I have here. I don't have the opposite.
Balancing.
I'm going to go to the opposite of it anyway.
Yeah.
So a lot of people know what the opposite is, and that is, this thing is in a Sharpie. I'm in trouble. Is when the tail is dropping.
Oh yeah, you have a Sinkville slide, but it doesn't show a glider, so we'll go back to it.
The reverse is going to happen. Is when the tail drops, it's because you're in sync, and the air going down. It's pushing the tail down, and the whole thing is pivoting because of the way the glider balance is going to make the plane, the tail drop. And what do we have to do when the tail drops? You have to give it down elevator because you're going. It's just the opposite of what you want to do. You want to give it up elevator. You don't want to go down. But you have to give it down elevator when you're in sync to lift the tail up to compensate the little flight to get the best glide ratio.
Spend a lot of time in those conditions.
That's Rich's favorite.
So, okay, well, I kind of skipped on something there, did I? So another thing I put in here is balancing the wings of a glider. A lot of people don't spend the time to do that. And the best way to do it is to do it in a garage, or this would be a great way to do it, where it's calm, no wind.
You hang it from our dead projector.
And you hang the wings over and you measure to the ground, hang the wings upside down, and measure the ground and get it to balance, and then add a little weight to the tip of one wing that's heavier than the other. Every glider is that way. Every glider, unless you're a really good builder or whatever, especially if you mount servos in the wings, a lot of wiring, the wings could be way off. And it helps with finding thermals, because you can get the glider to fly slower sometimes and get more sensitivity out of the wings to be able to tell which. Also, I find it's helpful in landing. When you're flying slow and you're trying to land and you're like coming in just at a stall point, it would just, instead of stalling over one side, it would just come nice and even. So I'll put that in there. So I call it, I don't know what I wrote in there.
Lateral balance.
Trapeze Act.
Lateral balance. That's
The low balance.
Okay, might be the next slide, but okay. Well, I think maybe we've talked about sync, but the next slide was about sync. Any comments on that?
I think we covered that pretty good.
I have a question about sync. Why is it that there's like 10% lift and 90% sync? It seems like there's a whole lot more sync than there is lift. That
Yes.
doesn't make sense.
That's a good question to ask. I guess if you thought about this room, right, and if we were flying a little miniature glider in here, there might be, I would say 90% of this room would be air that's not lift. You know, there'd be one little spot that is lift. So
Thornburg is called the river of air, and he referred to the lift as being bubbles that are going up. And if the bubble has got a pretty strong lift to it that's going up, then a lot of air around it needs to be displaced. Not as fast,
Yeah.
but our cubic volume of air goes down for every bubble that goes up. And then the bubbles don't go up, but they go downstream.
Right.
With the air churning, it's like the water going in the riverbed.
That's pretty good.
If 90% of the air was going up, we pretty soon would have an atmosphere.
yeah, so that's why you have to fly some kind of, you got to search around. You can't just fly in one spot thinking, oh, there's going to be lift eventually. You got to look around. You got to fly all over the place to try to find the air that's going up.
I think nowhere was that more evident than 1 year by sailing at the big contest in October. Off maybe half a mile away, maybe it's not that far away, but there's an embankment or what do you call it? You know, they have these
Like a berm.
berms. Yeah, that's a good term. And it goes for a long, long way. And I think, and they have a road on top of it, of course. But starting from the north, you'd have a huge dust devil. Come about maybe 100 yards, there'd be another one. Another 100 yards, there's another one. Another 100 yards, there's another one. They're just generated and just coming in one after another after another. That's a good day. Because you know, if that's happening there, it's happening locally where you are too, probably. But that's just an example. There's a lot, and yet it's very localized. The lift is very localized.
Are thermals moving? Are they like moving circularly?
Sometimes, sometimes not.
Well, they're not, right?
But I kind of think of like a really slow tornado. No?
No.
I think they're toroidal by nature. So it's like a donut
Like a donut.
that is spinning inside and out
Yeah.
as it goes up.
Yeah.
And so you have a stronger lift in the middle and then it kind of cools off a little bit, falls down around, and it all goes up, kind of makes this donut going up through the
It's
air.
like a
So-
mushroom cloud sort of shape.
Well, it doesn't span to it. It grows that way, but it is, I think,
You know, unless you're at the top of what started out as a dust devil, that really is probably still spinning up there.
If you look at time-lapse pictures on news programs or whatever, the clouds going by, they're not spinning. It takes half a continent sized thing to make it spin with Coriolis. A little thermal doesn't do much of that. Dust devils is sort of a very special case because they're tiny. Dust devils maybe 100 feet.
and they're usually an indicator of shear.
Yeah. Or the dust devil can be maybe 15 or 20 feet in diameter. But a thermal like we're talking about is 500 or 600 feet diameter.
It's a big blob.
It's up.
Yeah.
And they're not turning. It's just if you get
They're that big.
And you don't want to ever fly into a dust devil that's anywhere near the ground because it'll carry your plane apart.
I've seen time-lapse pictures of clouds forming and going. I don't know, I bet there's some on YouTube, but I haven't looked at YouTube, but I have seen time-lapse photos of clouds. And if you see a cloud, like the formation is like one place, and the part of it blows away in one place, and then the whole thing steps over, and then the development forms right there.
Yeah.
But a cloud can be 1,000 feet in diameter, and they're not rotating. They're not spinning.
Right.
So one other thing about sync that I always make this mistake is I always try to just squeeze out all the lift I can out of sync, which is ridiculous. You should really put the nose down and get out of there as quick as you can. In fact, the new GLGs, we're building these thinner wings because we're not trying to get a floaty plane. We're actually trying to get a plane that can launch high and then can scoot out of the sinks and just find a thermal. And it's sort of like we're not worried about just being floaty all over the place. You just want to get going.
And the opposite of what they did with the old ways, 50 years ago. Jack did the flat bottom barrel to stay in the air as long as you can and hope something comes along and lift you up. And now the theory is no, scoot, go look for something because you're going to come down otherwise.
And the new composite gliders that have the thinner, stronger airfoils, they can do that, It's amazing how strong those composites are.
It's always a trade-off. Is it going to be thick enough in the midsection to survive from the ice guard? And then just get draggier.
Oh, the wooden gliders you're talking about.
The kicks,
in the core.
the evolution of airfoils over the last 50 years in kicks, going from the flat bottom and adding the Phillips entry and then getting, to the depplers and then getting to the Celadons and they kept getting thinner all the time to get to trailers down, because he's relying on burn.
Maybe. I can't control that right now.
If you err on the fast side of airspeed, you lose less than if you err on the slow side of airspeed. It's maybe a fine line, but if you're going maybe 20 miles an hour and you feel like you could do 18 miles an hour and stay a little, you could probably do closer to 30 miles an hour and lose about the same. Yeah.
So be biased towards speed.
Yeah.
So if you're in sync,
Get the hell out of there.
But the problem I have is when I get into a thermal, is that I stall. The nose, the tail doesn't go up. I think maybe it would go up once you're in it, but when you just fly into it, if I'm not get good enough to react quickly enough to correct for that, and then I'll end up losing altitude because I didn't correct quickly enough. Get a little mini stall.
Is this with your DLGs? Or?
Yeah, or with, the balls of high starts.
you might be nose heavy, too nose heavy in a plane.
I think it's really more just my reaction time that I'm just not good enough to react when it hits through. Isn't it natural that the nose, if you're heading straight into it, that the nose would get pushed out?
Well,
No.
not necessarily.
Oh.
If you've got it balanced, and at least in my case, I try to keep the plane near neutral balance, so it's just barely stable. And in that case, it should just lift.
Okay.
Very little nose.
Another way to visualize, if you're just holding a plane, this gets back to this little pyramid balance. If you're just holding a plane like this, and if you could force yourself to just drop, that's as though the wind has instantly gone vertical.
Yeah.
If you just drop the plane, it's going to go tail up and nose down.
Right.
It's just the way it's balanced. Yeah. So if you fly into lift, maybe you get a little bit nose up, and then the tail comes in because the tail's going to come up.
I do know
Well,
it's
slope flying, you get that's extreme because especially if you try to fly a floater type glider on a slope, you're really going to see that, you know, because you're in a ridge lift that's really strong. It's really going to kick up on you.
A good, great place to visualize it is force balance. If you fly it out, you want to make a landing, you're coming in a little too high, penetrating in the wind, you get back into the lift, and instantly the nose goes up, the nose goes down, or tail goes up, and you're back out of the lift. It's instantaneous with a lift like that. It's amazing.
I'm going to comment on that Stevens thing because I was going to bring up something I do, which is similar. When I'm in a thermal, I kind of do these choppy turns. I know you're supposed to be smooth and circular, but I kind of, every once in a while, I get a turn that like, it must be a stall where it can just like make a really sharp, so it's not a circle, but every once in a while you get a, like with almost no cover, distance cover, you almost turn it, 45 degrees or 90 degrees. And so I take advantage of that to make my circle, but it's a pretty choppy circle as I go around. So I don't know.
I do the same thing though.
Yeah.
With the right airplane, obviously it's got to be a pretty agile plane, but rather than trying to do some kind of smooth circle, I'll just, make as quick a turn as I can to try and stay in the same location as much as possible. But I attribute that to the fact that we're flying at low altitudes and the thermals are really small and you can't.
I think it comes with our lack of experience too.
No, it couldn't be lack of experience.
Yeah. Because I know you're supposed to be smooth.
As you speed up, if you put a couple clicks down and you try to see anything, you'll notice that it's less of an effect at higher airspeeds.
Yeah.
Yeah, kinematics. I mean, the plane just doesn't get once. The faster and faster you go, the less it's going to drop a wing like that, or it's because.
Yeah. So we're trying to fly too slow, probably is the problem.
So part of it is just an effect of flying a little slower, and that was one of the hardest learning curves for me when I transitioned from flying ollies and wanderers to flying, big pulleys. Was I always had a tendency to try and float, and I learned that the faster and faster the different airfoils and different heavier wing things, more complicated airplanes that I flew, they had to fly faster because you can't fly those things slow down. Misbehave. And, I don't know if Bobby can tell about the difference between a bubble dancer and an ollie.
Oh, yeah. The speed range is so tremendous with a bubble dancer. With an ollie 2 or similar plane with that thick Clark Y. Well, you can even take it to extreme. I have an Astrojet. It has the same kind of wing. I can take that thing up in the air, and I swear, give it full down. The tail will raise a little, and it'll go a little faster, and pretty soon it's flying level. You can't make it go fast. It just won't go fast. Whereas with the bubble dancer, just a few clicks of down, and it's hauling.
So there's a certain speed at which each contributing to your feeling of jerkiness and stuff. Is it try it at different speeds?
Well, I know it's not lack of experience. Right.
Or lack of confidence.
Okay, back to the talk here.
Back to the,
So I added this little thing here is pitch, roll, and yaw. Okay, everyone knows what pitch, roll, and yaw is, right?
got a great graphic of this.
So yaw. Understanding that is kind of the fundamentals. So people talk about how their body flies, and a lot of people forget about the fundamentals of flight and why that's important to understand what that is. And so I just made a little illustration of that. supposed to be something that I could show, but I don't know if you can see. You want to turn that around?
I just did, yeah.
I don't know. A lot of, some coasters have this as X, Y, and Z, kind of thing, but I just can't have it picture on so yeah. Anyway, it's important that, and the new modern gliders, this is important to have because we have ailerons, we got flaps that are flaperons, whatever, rudder, elevator, and being able to control all this and understand how it interacts for better flying is just a basic thing. And so that was all that is. I was making comments that my first radio control that I had was a pulse radio. And had this dry cell batteries I had to put in it, and it would cause the rudder to flap a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right, depending on how it pulsed. And one channel only. Basically, flying was very out of control. And back then, I used an 049 motor, the Cox 049, and it's like taking off, and it's basically you turn and maybe you're going to crash. It's like, oh, it's not very much control of that. And then later, I got a 2-channel radio, and that was awesome. It was a Futaba 2-channel, and this was back in the early 1970s. And I used that radio for a lot. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I bought a 4-channel radio. And being able to have full control over the plane was awesome. And that's when I started designing my own gliders with the ailerons and flaps, and started doing that because here I got all these controls now. I'm going to take advantage of it, And I was not happy with all the glider kits that were out there. They were terrible. They didn't have ailerons, they didn't have flaps, they didn't have anything. So I was just building my own. So if anybody's, I'm totally for ailerons. I think they're awesome.
What do you think of us RES types?
I think we need to add ailerons.
We'd be fine if we only added that.
I had an interesting reminder lesson tonight. Came from Seattle this afternoon as we were going, and coming in on a smaller jet than I usually fly. It's home tonight, and the pilot was using spoilers. Spoilers, yeah. And so you got to look at the effect. You're either going to add drag and reduce lift, or with flaps, add drag but actually increase lift. Very different effect. Mm-hmm. And so, in my mind, I've been trying to justify spoilers for a long time because I just don't like them. Quite frankly, I think that if you're going to carry the weight of the extra servo, you back off the flaps, you can get flat control, and it's just better. I don't know why there isn't RES. It should be REF. But then I'm looking out the window tonight, and I'm watching the way he's using this, and he uses both, but they're for different things. And I noticed that at higher speeds and higher altitudes, when you come and try to shave off lift, but add drag to kill speed. But because of the speed he was at, he didn't want to change the section of the airplane, right? Which is what flaps would do. And then after he's lower and wants to go slower, then the spoilers come down and the flaps drop, because then you create a lower speed airfoil. Of course, it's going to change your angle of attack, right? So you get your elevator and level it out, but technically, then you've still got the drag that you had in the spoilers, and now you've got the drag to lift your airfoil for going at a lower speed. Yeah. So you hear that, Steve?
Absolutely agree, 100%.
That just made sense to me. All of a sudden, like you kind of need. I do have one glider that has flaps and spoilers.
I noticed that myself. I just flew back from New York a week ago. I was looking out the wing as we were coming over the mountains on your approach, and he was using the spoilers to control the attitude of the plane. I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting.
Drop the wing real quick because you fill the lift that way.
Yeah.
And you don't change the airflow section. So there's got to be something to that.
B-52 doesn't have the as flaps, or not flaps, it's spoilers.
Well,
Raise the spoiler. So what model jet was it you were on? Is it?
you don't even know what it was. It was just different than the one they usually put. It should look.
I think I haven't really finished writing this. This is something that I wanted, it's going to take a long time to put it all together. I started making these notes, and so it's kind of preliminary. It takes a lifetime, I guess, to come up with how to explain to people how to find thermals, you know. You can't just, well, you just go and do it, you know. It takes a lot of practice. You got to show up, you know. You got to put aside the time to go out to the field, and you got to be willing to take chances.
There's also a knack to it.
What's
Some
that?
people are way better than me, and they haven't been doing it nearly.
You know, if I'm not thermally good today, then I'm landing practice day, you know.
There's a kind of a dirty little secret too to practicing, and I'm guilty of it, and I'm sure other people are too. I like to fly when there's lift. I don't really like practicing when it's really windy. I just don't get a kick out of that. But if you really want to be proficient, you really should practice under all conditions you can think of.
Yes.
It's that contest.
And
You're going to find it.
and there are people who do that, like Bob McGowan.
And Rich Spicer was like that for years. He'd be the first one there in the morning, and the last one day of the night.
Yeah.
You got to remember, you want to practice in different environments.
Yeah.
Your trees will make a big difference. You can have a ridge line with a row of trees.
Sure.
Breaking through tunnels. You got different dynamics at low altitude than you do higher. That's what I don't give a damn about where you're going to find thermals. You're going to find thermals. A lot of times just by pure luck.
I've had some of my best thermal flying in 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and everybody's leaving. It's the best thermals that are out there. You know, they're stronger, they're really kicking, the wind's kicking up, you're drifting a lot more downwind, but you get enough altitude where you get high enough to zoom upwind and find another one. You know, so it's not just in the morning when thermals can be good, they can be good in the afternoon.
I think flying a DLG may be a much better 4-meter pilot. That's all the practice from the DLG here at eye level. You got a much different view of the attitude of the plane and the effect of the bubbles. Everything's more wind up. You're constantly launching and landing, and a little thermal makes a big difference in the airframe.
It's more demanding.
Yeah, that is. You really got to pay a lot of attention, and you go back to the big plane, and it's just a little bit more to it after doing that. It improves you.
Well,
All right.
I'm out of words.
Any follow-on questions? And I'll check the audience too.
Oh yeah, check.
Yeah. Any questions? Looks like we're winding up here.
Yeah, Kyle, Jerry, one last thought. I think the last 2 bullets here on this slide about paying attention to sink rate, they're really important. And as you're making your cruising around trying to find the lift, paying attention to the sink is almost just as important as paying attention to the lift. And as the sink increases, you need to increase your speed to get out of that. But that tells you that there's probably a really strong thermal nearby to generate that really big sink. So you should be expecting to find lift soon, which is actually a good thing. So although I'm happy to get away from big sink, I'm actually kind of happy to find it because that means I'm in pretty turbulent air. That means there's something good nearby.
Okay, that's a good point, yeah. A lot of times I'll find sink and I won't be able to get out of there.
I understand. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Cool.
Okay. Well, thanks, Richard. Appreciate it.